This is the place where archaeologists have been digging for evidence of human beings, and what they have found is that 5 million years ago, the ancestors of human beings of today lived here and roamed or lived in various places on the Serengeti plains. Along with them were the various animals and the chimpanzees. They lived harmoniously, and the speakers can state it because these animals live harmoniously even today. But Homo sapiens left this area about 200,000 years ago and wandered away. And in the process, he invented language. And we will come to how he lived the last 10,000 years using language. But let us see whether we can understand how human beings must have lived there on the Serengeti plains by looking at the way that the animals live today. There are two takeaways. One is they live peacefully within the species and among species. And herbivores live without any fear of carnivores. So for the details of all this, will come in the next segment. Another important aspect I want to share with you is that every individual animal has a special characteristic, and this feeds into improving the species. But the important thing is it's the species which creates the individual. And from this, we should understand that you and I have individual characteristics, as you can see, but we are fundamentally created by the human species. And what we do every day goes to improve the human species. And that's the evolution of the human species. So in describing the way animals live today on the Serengeti plains and the various game parks, I want you to look at their peace and what they do to improve the species. But thereafter I go to description of chimpanzees, and you will see the amount of affection that they have for each other and how they live. Unfortunately, I have not gone to the park. It's difficult to get to. So I have drawn on the work of the experience of two great people from their books. And from the life of chimpanzees, we can learn something about human beings. So with that, let me turn to the life of the animals and of the chimpanzees. Scientists over the last 200 years have been accumulating evidence or data gradually about the past history of the universe, of the planet Earth, of the life on Earth. The more we go back, the less we are sure about the evidence or the model that can be created. But for our purpose, we can be fairly sure that humankind or Homo sapiens arose in East Africa 5 million years ago. And the species of chimpanzees and the humans split up. Chimpanzees in groups continue to live on the banks of Lake Tanganyika, while the humans, with the ability to walk, the use of hands, and superior brain power, were able to do so many things, even though physically they were not as strong as the chimpanzee. We can see the life of the Maasais who came into the Maasai plains in Kenya and Tanzania not more than 1,000 years ago, how they adjust to the migratory life, taking their cattle and moving with the wildebeest and zebra on their annual migration, and making huts wherever they had to stop. They lived on the blood and milk of their cattle and had goats which they slaughtered when they wanted to have meat, but never attacked or killed the wild animals which ate the grass along with their cattle. The carnivores, example, the lion prides, did not attack either the cattle or the young Maasais who took the cattle for grazing or watering. One may say that the lions did not look at the Maasai either as a prey or as a competitor. So that's the way the humans must have lived 5 million years ago in small groups, living on fruits and berries, catching small animals. But something happened 200,000 years ago, and Homo sapiens started moving out of Tanzania. We have evidence of the Homo sapiens at a place called Old Boy Gorge on the Serengeti Plains, where Professor Leakey and his team have been researching. And the DNA tracking has been done of the migration of the Homo sapiens to all parts of the planet. We can say it is only within this period of 200,000 years that man settled down in different areas of the globe, learning how to live in that area. And his skill and his body, the formation, color of the skin, everything adapted to living successfully in that area. And the result was that the population expanded. The sense of being a tribe was very important, and this was forged by a common language, by marriage within the tribe. It was also forged by the constant battle with the adjacent tribes. We can see this even today in what's happening in different parts of the world. So man has been a tribal over the last 200,000 years up to now. During the last 200,000 years, unlike the chimpanzee, mankind developed the larynx and the brain in order to develop language as the means of communication. It is language which has made it possible for the human species to set it apart from the rest of the animals. Through language, they'll be able to communicate information in order to be successful in every area, wherever they settle down. The obstacles, the means of overcoming the obstacles. And through language, they will be able to understand different parts of the world. Language is the principal means by which the civilization of mankind has grown. And it is through language, both spoken and thereafter written, that the teaching of the ancient sages have come down from generation to generation. And a faith in the teaching has come about. So it's very important that we understand the exact import of language, which consists of two distinct matters, that is the symbol and the model. Consider how animals communicate. They use bodily language, face language, the use of the tail. Elephants communicate by trumpeting, by waving their heads, their trunks. Lions communicate by scowls, by swinging their tails to show the rest of the lioness to follow them. Zebras have a braying and shaking their heads to warn of danger. Baboons have 30 different sounds for a variety of actions. Chimpanzees have a great amount of observations, and through facial expression, they are able to communicate their feelings and what they need to do. They don't have a larynx, so they are not able to speak. But researchers in USA have been able to teach the sign language to chimpanzees, and they have been able to communicate with humans and with each other, making more than 100 words. When those who were domesticated were released in the wilds of Africa, they taught other chimpanzees and they communicated among themselves using sign language. But nevertheless, it's the humans who are able, through verbal communication, slowly mastered the use of symbols and models. And in order to understand how humans mastered the world, we need to understand symbols and models. Evolution over 5 billion years had brought into being a species, given it the larynx and the brain and the tools for verbal communication of a very sophisticated nature. It gave them the tribe so that there could be a common language. The language was used to make the life increasingly complex. Even though human beings and chimpanzees have been living on the planet for 5 million years, they have a common history prior to 5 million years with so many other species. So along with the humans and chimpanzees, there were other species which evolved simultaneously on the Serengeti plains. And we can study how these animals live as a species. The object of such study is that we want to understand how the human species is, and by studying other species we can get a better understanding of the human species so that we don't get mixed up in our personal view of life by our life. Rather, we want to understand the species of mankind. So in order to understand what is happening among mankind, we need to understand how other species live, and we need to understand about language. And that's what I will turn to now.